Hello, welcome to Tech Talk with Steve. I'm your host, Steve Cowles with AEM Test. And today we're going to be talking about manufacturer warranties. We're talking about the cabling and connectivity warranties. What are they? Why are they so important? What are the different types of warranties that are out there? And why it's important that your test equipment be approved by these manufacturers for their warranty programs. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick just to give you a little bit of an idea what we're talking about. I've got, if you've visited our website, you've seen this before. It's our list of warranty approvals. So feel free to pop over to the website if you haven't seen it before and take a look at that. But this is kind of what we're talking about, having your test equipment approved by the manufacturers for their warranty programs. So I'll go back to my camera now, and we'll welcome our special guest, Chuck Bowser, RCDD Tech of Let's Talk Cabling fame. Welcome, Chuck.
How you doing? Did you see me dancing to your music?
I think Jacqueline probably saw you. I couldn't see it.
So I was dancing to your intro music until my puppy dog got. She's like, "Hey, Dad's having seizures. Help, Dad!"
Great. Well, Chuck, I wanted to have you on for this episode specifically because you've got quite a varied background. You've got experience from the contractor side and from the manufacturer side when it comes to the warranty programs and things. So I thought it'd be great to have you join us. You've got quite the background, quite the level of experience, and I think there's a lot you can lend to this discussion as we talk about this. So my understanding of manufacturer warranties, I've been dealing with them for years from both the distributor side of the equation, from selling the products, and then from the manufacturer side on test equipment, working with the manufacturers out there, getting our products approved. There's a whole process. It's not just, hey, approve our tester and you get a rubber stamp. It's, you typically have to send the manufacturer your test equipment. They put it through rigorous testing, and it's when they cover these products with their extended warranty systems, it's not a case where they're just saying, oh yeah, we're going to cover everything. It's a case where they test the interoperability of the cabling and the connectors. And sometimes it's different manufacturers, one manufacturer of cabling, a different manufacturer of connectivity. And both of them are testing the interoperability of their products. So they want to make sure that they're going to work as a system so they can warrant it. And then they have to do the same thing with the test equipment, run the tests, make sure it compares to their lab equipment in a favorable manner before they'll actually issue an approval. So it's not just a case where you ask for an approval and get it.
Yeah, this is a real confusing subject, and I want to take just a half a step back because people get confused between warranties and extended warranty programs because they're
Right.
two totally different things, right? Well, if I go buy some cable and some connectivity products from Lowe's, I get a warranty. It's 30 days, but I get a warranty, right? So I look at it this way. That's the difference between good companies and great companies. So a lot of companies, brand new starting out, they just they go with just the regular 30, 60, 90-day warranties. But then you step into the great realm and you start hooking up with the manufacturers. And I've been on both sides, just like you said. I've been a contractor for both large and small companies, and I'm also on the manufacturing side too. So I get to see both sides of this. And I think that, as a contractor, it sets you apart when you partner with a manufacturer and you're in their extended warranty program, because you're right. There are steps that you got to go through in order to be considered for that program, right? You don't just say, I fill out a piece of paper and I'm in. Most of the manufacturers are going to run you through some kind of a vetting process. You have to have you have to have an established reputation in your market area. And we all know cable guys talk. If you do bad work, it's known. It is known. And so you have to have a good reputation, and then you come in, and then of course, one of the things they're going to do is they want to make sure that your technicians are trained, and number two, you are using good equipment.
Right.
Good equipment, right? And that especially boils down to testers. And you're right, because being on the manufacturer side, a lot of times what will happen is, there's a manufacturer says, oh, we got this new tester, we want it to be in the program, and well, you submit it to us, and well, first it's got to be standards compliant, right? It's got to do all those things, and then you're right, we're going to run it through the testing methodologies to make sure that it does test. Because when a customer buys products that has the extended warranty, they're expecting not just average performance and average lifetime. They're paying extra to have that extra assurance, and those are the steps that you got to go through. You have to have a good quality tester and good quality trained people.
Right, right. And I think that not a lot of people realize that it's not just the manufacturer of these products that is involved here. It is the technicians, the contractors, because they go through that vetting process you mentioned. They go through training and they get tested. It's not just, oh, we go through a 1 hour training. Here's how you punch down a jack. They go through some extensive training. I got training from a manufacturer, years ago, back in the mid late 90s. Got trained and certified by a manufacturer as part of their program. And it was a week-long course. It's not just a couple of punch downs and, the test works, you're good to go, you're certified. It's extensive.
Right. Oh, it has the training programs are absolutely. I call ours a boiled down 1 day Bixie course because we go through code standards, bonding and grinding, installation practices, copper installation termination, fiber installation termination. So it's not just it used to be what I call the pizza diploma program, right? Where you show up and they're like, hey, here's our new jacks. There's some pizza over there. Thanks for showing up. They're today's competitive environment, you can't do that. You just absolutely can't do that.
Yeah.
And I tell you what throws another thing into the loop as well, too, is when there are some manufacturers out there that have the whole kit and caboodle, right? The connectors, the faceplates, the cable, the patch panels, the whole kit and caboodle. And then there are other manufacturers who will team with, they may not make, for example, like cabling. And then they'll come into a business agreement with some cable manufacturer. And then the problem with that is life changes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden now they're not in an agreement with that manufacturer. We're now they're in agreement with another manufacturer, and as a contractor, that makes it. You guys get used to pulling and terming a certain type of cable and terming it. And now all of a sudden they're changing,
Right.
And then when they change, they may also change testing. The types of testers they're allowed to use,
And you may have to get retrained.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of times you do have to get retrained. I remember one time I worked for one of the contractors I worked for, and I won't mention their name to keep them anonymous. So we went and bought a new tester that our local rep said, hey, that's the one that the manufacturer wants. So we went out and bought it, and then we tested a 500 cable job, submitted the test results for warranty, and guess what? It was not one that they recognized.
Oh.
Yeah. So we had to go back and retest everything to get the warranty.
Wow.
So, communications, we work in the communications industry. Okay. Communicate.
Yeah.
Right. So make sure that tester has been qualified. And like I said, you're right. The manufacturers, you got to send the tester to them and they will run it through their engineers are pretty tough. And one of the guys I used to work with, he's forgotten more about testing than I know about testing. And just, that's why when we used to ask him questions about testing, I had to make sure I always preface my question is explain it like you're talking to a cable guy, not an engineer.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about that because it's you do have to get everything in line. And we talked about this in a previous episode that you and I did together. Where we're talking about how to make your installation go smoother, right? And this is that communication. Make sure that when you go into this job, that you're using the right manufacturer jacks and cable, the correct cable. You've got a tester that's approved for the job, approved for that manufacturer's warranty program. Because you don't want to get into that situation you just talked about where you test several hundred drops and then you find out, I got to retest everything. So it's important to make sure that you've got your T's crossed and your I's dotted and everything looks good.
I like that you said that. Here's pro tip number 1 for the day. Make sure that tester's set up correctly. Okay?
Yes.
And what I mean by that is I'm going beyond making sure that if you category 6 cable that the tester's set for cat 6. I'm going beyond that. I'm talking about in the actual test, or make sure you have the name of the project on the test results.
Yep.
The date it was actually tested,
yep.
And the name of the person who's actually doing the the testing. Because what happens is, and I've seen this way too many times, our guys are really good at pulling and terminating cables, but sometimes when it comes to computer systems and stuff, they are the one finger typing kind of, challenge people, right? So what happens is they'll submit test results, and then the name of the person who's on the test results is actually doing the test was somebody who hasn't worked for the company for 4 years because nobody knows how to change the name in the tester.
Wow.
And manufacturers want to have that information, because if they have a question about a procedure or particular test results, they want to talk to the person who actually did the testing, not
That's right.
the warehouse manager, not the person who worked for them 4 years ago. They want to talk to the person who was actually on site doing the testing.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So a question just kind of popped into my head here. I was thinking about your comment early talking about the training course being like a mini Bixie training course. And you're not just an RCDD, but you're also Bixie Tech certified. And you teach classes. So from a contractor point of view, for the contractors in the audience out there, if I have my technicians that are tech certified by Bixie, does that make it easier to get that association with a manufacturer who's going to bless me for their warranty program or accept me in for their training for their warranty program? Or do they not even look at that?
That's a case by case decision made by the manufacturer, and every manufacturer is a little different. And some manufacturers will tell you, yes, if you have a Bixie certified technician, that serves in lieu of going through a certification course. But that, when you think about it in the long run, if that person comes from company A and they were using manufacturer B, and now they come work for you, but they haven't really installed this new manufacturer that you're working with. Well, they don't have a whole bunch of experience there, even though they are a Bixie technician. Now they can work their way through it. Don't get me wrong.
They just need the training on the
There's
specific
some
product.
nuances there. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. There's some nuances there. And I'll give you an example. So the manufacturer I work for, and I won't say who it is because it's a great company. I'm on a Slack channel with Low Voltage Nation. And I'm on there because I'm trying to stay plugged to the field. And somebody ironically posted a picture of one of our jacks and said they were having problems with it. So I responded in the group, look, I don't normally say this in the group, but I'm the technical manager for that company. I will I'll help you get through this issue. So every jack's different. And there's always, Cat 8. There's Cat 8 jacks now. They get terminated differently from Cat 6A. And if you're not a constant learner in this industry, you're going to be left behind. And that's one of the good things. That's why manufacturers have that yearly registration cycle where you have to have technicians go through that course, because that way they learn the new example. Oh, here's a perfect one. This one just came to my head. MPTLs.
Oh yeah.
Right? So the common practice for a long time was to put 2 channel heads and then test it, and you're off and running, right? Well, that testing methodology got changed by the standards, and so your manufacturers got to change their training programs to reflect what the standards say. And now it tells you the correct way to do it: a permanent link on one side and a patch cord adapter on the other side.
Exactly.
So even if you are a Bixie technician, like the thing right there says, I'm a technician, you're always learning. There's always, our industry is not stagnant. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I know there are some out there who still use channel adapters on that other end in their tests, but it shows up in your test documentation, and you may get a manufacturer who will gig you on that. So if you are doing MPTL, make sure that you're following that. And with regard to the patch cord adapters, in case people aren't aware, you need to have a patch cord adapter that is specific to the category of cable that you're testing. So they don't make like permanent link. You have a 6A permanent link adapter, it'll test everything below it. But with patch cord adapters, you need a 5E, you need a 6, and you need a 6A. So, if you're testing that cable, you have to use the specific patch cord adapter for it. So good point there on the MPTL.
Yeah. And if you get dinged on something like that, most of the manufacturers, I'm not aware of any that doesn't, but most of the manufacturers are going to make you go back and retest it the correct way, because they're the ones on the hook, right?
Yeah.
And let me ask you, this is not a question for you to necessarily answer, but for everybody to think about, who has enough time in a day to do the same task twice?
Oh yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Time is money.
Yeah. And when they do the bid for the project, they only put enough time in there to test that cable once, not twice.
Right. Right. Yep. Exactly. So it's good to make sure that you're following all those procedures when you're dealing with the manufacturer warranty program. So I'll throw a question at you here, and we see pass, we see fail on tests. We also have something we refer to as star pass or star fail, where the test is, if it's a star pass, it means that it passed, but it barely passed because it's within the margin of error for the test equipment. And the same thing with fail. It's, it failed, but it's close enough that it might be a pass if it was a little better. And we all know, we've talked about this in previous sessions, where if you get a star pass, you should treat it as a failure, and you should examine that cable, troubleshoot it like you would a failure, and figure out why you got that star pass and correct the issue so that you get a clean pass. If a contractor submits a star pass in there, they submit 100 test reports, and they got a couple in there that are star pass, do manufacturers typically kick those back as a failure?
So again, it's going to be manufacturer specific. If I'm a project manager and I'm testing projects, and I've got a 100 cable project, and let's say 5 of them have star pass, before I even submit those to the manufacturer for warranty, I'm going to go back and have my guys re-terminate and retest them. Okay. And then if they still get them same 5, this is where that C word comes back into play, communications. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You should really know this ahead of time, because every manufacturer is going to handle a little differently. Some will say absolutely not, no star passes whatsoever. Other ones will say, well, we will accept a limited number, but what is that limited number? Nobody will tell you what that number is.
Probably a percentage of the overall tests,
Right,
I guess.
exactly. And and for about a year or so, I was actually reviewing tests submitted for warranty, and as part of my job function, until somebody got hired to replace the person who left. And I've looked at projects with 5,000, 10,000 cables, no star pass test results. And I've looked at other projects that had 75, 100 cables, and 50 of them were star passes.
Wow.
So it's not a black or white issue, right? It's all in perspective, right? If you're looking at 1 or 2 or 3 cables, as a manufacturer, they're probably going to reach out to you and say, "What did you do to try to fix this?" And if you give them the right answer, if it's only 1 or 2 or 3 cables, they'll probably say, "Okay, yeah, not a problem."
Right.
But on the flip side of that, if it's 50% of the cables, they're going to be wanting to know there's something going on here. Is it a tester issue? Is it a process issue with somebody using the tester? Is it a product issue? Is it the problem with the cabling? Is there a problem with the connectors? Because there have been problems with manufacturers before where they've had issues with the components to make stuff, and it just caused a problem. They had to do recalls on lots and stuff, and that's happened for every manufacturer out there.
And unfortunately, they never find those out until they're installed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even if you have a 99.99999% perfect rate, and you're manufacturing 100 million feet of cable, there's still some going out bad.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
So we've got a good idea, why these warranties are there, how you get this warranty. You're using a trained contractor. You've got a reputable manufacturer who stands behind their product, be it the cabling or the connectivity manufacturer, or the teams of both when they're different companies. Why is having such a warranty so important to the end user? So is it just for peace of mind, or is it because stuff happens and maybe there's a possibility that down the road there is an issue that they know that they can call that manufacturer and they'll send that contractor? It could be the same contractor or another certified contractor to rectify the problem.
Right. So in order to understand that question, you got to really think about who is the point of contact for the customer, right? 90% of the time, the point of contact is somebody who's not even their job's not even IT. They're the office manager, and this is just another thing that got thrown on their plate. And don't get me wrong, we do get projects where we have customers who come at us. Their point of contacts in RCDD, and that's a different thing. But most of the people, they've already got enough stuff on their plate, and they don't understand what's that symbol in front of the pass. Why is that bad? Why is that good? They don't have to deal with that, and they know that if they select manufacturer A, because most manufacturers will court a customer and they'll tell them, "Hey, look, here's a sample of our syllabus that our contractors will go through." I've even had customers sit in classes before with me teaching contractors, and the customer's like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize you taught all that stuff." It's like, yes. So it gives them a peace of mind, right? Because they don't have to know all those acronyms and all that fun stuff and what's a star pass mean. It gives them that sense of the sense of comfort that they know it's going to work. And if it doesn't, it's just one phone call, and it's taken care of, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good to deal with a quality manufacturer, and this kind of ties back into one of your Let's Talk Cabling episodes that you had me on, where you were talking about different cables that you tested, and you did some comparisons between big box store stuff and a reliable, well-known
Mm-hmm.
quality manufacturer, and it makes a difference. And you know, you use the different cables or the different jacks, and an end user might be thinking, you know, I can go with this manufacturer and their nice extended warranty, but I could save a little bit of money if I go with this, you know, this big box store stuff and just have the guy working out of the trunk of his car install it for me.
Right.
And the issue you get with that, and we talked about this in your session, is when you test it, there's something called headroom. And headroom is the difference between where the standards set the limits for performance and where the cable and connectors actually perform. And as you approach that limit, if it gets too close to the limit, you've got less headroom. And you want headroom in there because, as we said, stuff happens. You know, maybe another trade comes in behind you and disturbs the cabling in your cable trays. If you've got plenty of headroom, it may not make a difference. But if you've got a marginal cable, a marginal connector, and a mediocre installer working out of his trunk, who you know, maybe had a 4 beer lunch before he did the install, you know, it could be a whole different ball game. You're not going to have that headroom, even if it passed the test.
Right.
The headroom is going to be very narrow, and you could have issues down the road.
And that's what I was alluding to earlier. I was actually the good versus great companies. And that's actually a book that I read many, many years ago. A friend of mine, a peer, gave it to me to read. And I can't remember who the author is off the top of my head, but it's called Good to Great. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the good companies. And don't get me wrong, there are trunk slammers out there, but there's a lot of smaller companies out there that may not have invested in a certifier yet, because a certifier can run, 8,000, 9,000 to 30,000, depending on which one you get, and bells and whistles and all kinds of fun stuff. And that, for someone who's just starting out a company and struggling to make payroll, that's a hard thing to invest in. So they
Yeah.
run with the 4-pair testers. Well, that doesn't really prove that there's no crosstalk and stuff like that. So at some point you want to make that leap and to get into have that cable certifier, so that way you can document. There's a word for you: document
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that cable plant does meet the standards, because a lot of times that standard is also written into the contract. It'll say the work will meet or exceed standards.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
prove that?
Exactly. And that actually ties in well with another question that I got sent to me ahead of this. Is somebody asked if they could use their NSA, their network service assistant, to support a manufacturer warranty, and the answer to that is no. And that answer is no because NSA does a single-ended test. It's still doing the test parameters that are prescribed in TIA 1152A. It's still following the 568 standard as far as the performance goes, but it's doing it in a single end to a remote terminator rather than a dual-ended test. And the standards for certification, it's going to require you to do a dual-ended test. Now, in our case, both ends look identical. We've got an LCD display on both ends. Some manufacturers out there have a remote that has LEDs to give you an indication of what's going on, but it's still a smart remote. It's still doing testing from that remote end. It just doesn't have the display and doesn't allow you to pull down a lot of the information like we do. But that's what's required for the standards. You have to have a device that is going to test from both ends of the cable for it to be considered certification. Anything less than that is going to be considered qualification, or what we call our NSA. We like to call it qualification plus, because you still see crosstalk, you still see ACR, you still see all those parameters, but you're only seeing it from a single end. And if you look at the test reports, because both will document it, you can tell immediately one from the other, because you see no data in the remote field at all on the test report. And that's a clear indicator that it wasn't done from two directions. So it does need to be, to qualify for manufacturer warranty, it does need to be a certifier. And you can't use, like you said, the little wire mappers that basically they'll just tell you, oh, my cable's open at 30 feet.
Right.
Or if it's good, it'll show you a good wire map, and that might be all. I've seen people use what we used to call light boxes. And all it is, it's got a series of LEDs. It doesn't detect crosstalk or anything. So you could have split pairs and you could get green lights all the way down because, oh, it sees 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 2, 3 goes to 3, and so on. So it looks at it's good. It's like, okay, it's going to work. And as soon as you hook up your network equipment, you start having problems. So that works okay for phone, but it ain't going to fly for network stuff. And that's, when we're installing structured cabling, we're talking about, Cat 6A and Cat 8.2 and all these things. We're installing this for a lot of applications. It's a network application. It's PoE, all of these applications. And if you don't install it properly, you don't test it properly and have a tester that's approved for that warranty program, then you're likely to have issues down the road. If you're using inferior equipment to check it out, you really don't know if it's going to work.
Yeah, that boils down to the communications that we talked about earlier. Make sure you understand which testers those manufacturers allow and follow that specifically. And that's why, I always, when I see contractors online and they've got all the manufacturers they have, and they're with 20 of them, right? You got to wonder, how good can you be at 20 different things? Most of your contractors are going to stick with maybe 4 or 5 manufacturers,
right?
That you can't be good at 20 different things.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else that causes problems for contractors too, is because then you got to manage 20 different warranty programs, right? Which ones allow this, which ones don't allow that.
Right.
I worked for a contractor one time. We finally just said no more. And the company, the contracting company said, we will give you a 20-year warranty, no matter whose connectivity products you use, no matter whose cable you use, we will give you a 20-year warranty. That way you don't have to, you can pick, because we were finding for those manufacturers who don't have the whole kit and caboodle, well, a company may like this company's, this continuity, there's a Chuckism for you. This connectivity manufacturer's products, but they don't like the cable company that they coupled with. They want to use a different cable company, and that causes them problems. Then you got to jump through, get special allowances for one-time projects only, and that just becomes another thing you've got to manage, and that takes time.
Yeah. Whereas that contractor who decided to do it on their own, it doesn't matter what they're using. They're the ones supporting the warranty.
But here's the flip side of that, though, right? This is why I always will say, try to go towards a manufacturer, because those manufacturers test their products with other manufacturers, with the cable manufacturers, and make sure that they're matched systems. As a contractor, you might say, yeah, we'll give you a warranty no matter what. But what if you just happen to pick that one cable that doesn't play well with that connectivity manufacturer?
Yeah.
And now you open yourself up to going back out to doing warranty claims.
That's a great point. And in theory, because we have the standards, that's what the standards were designed for, was interoperability, so that all these different manufacturers, as long as they're all manufacturing their cables and their jacks and everything to the standards, they should work well together. But there are some slight differences in some, and there are some inferior products out there on the market. I had a customer a while back was having some issues with DC resistance unbalance failing. And it turned out they were using a cable. I won't mention the manufacturer, but they were using a cable that they had not used previously. They were using the same jacks they'd always used, but they were using a different cable on this job at the request of the customer. And it continuously failed the DC resistance unbalance, which is important for power over Ethernet.
Mm-hmm.
And they explained all this. And so what they did is they took a known length of this new cable, same identical length of the cable that they were accustomed to using all the time. They did identical terminations and they tested them both side by side. The new cable failed, and the cable that they had previously used on all their other jobs passed with flying colors. So the cable, we suspect, might have been tinned copper or copper clad aluminum or some other kind of variation of an offshore product that found its way into the market. And that's a big issue. So it is important, as you mentioned, if you really want to hedge your bet, get with a reliable manufacturer who's going to back up their stuff. So.
And if you want to be one step ahead of the competition, the competition is far fewer if you are just only competing against other contractors who are in the same program. If it's open to everybody, you're going to do a bid that has 20, 30, 40 contractors there. So that's another advantage of being in a warranty program, because it narrows the field who you're competing against. And not only does it narrow it, you know who those people are because they've been in the industry, they're in the program, so they got a reputation. So you're not bidding against 20 people, 10 of whom you've never heard, because literally
Right.
6 months ago, they weren't a company.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yep.
So, well, that puts us right at the bottom of the hour here. Other than what we've discussed so far, I don't see any other questions. Anything else you think of that maybe we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention?
No, just have a happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's, Happy Kwanzaa, all the
Yeah.
holidays that you celebrate. Yeah, getting the time of
Great.
the year. I'm actually on vacation this week. I donned the work clothes just for Steve.
Nice. Well, you see, I donned the holiday clothes just for you. So, so,
Yep.
so, well, great, Chuck. I really appreciate you joining us. And as Chuck said, everybody have a happy holiday season. And we look forward to seeing you back after the new year on our next episode on January 4th. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Chuck.
No problem. Take care, everybody.